what is it that's stopping somebody from doing it? I'd say the majority of the people probably is they don't like seeing themselves on camera or whatever.
Well, if you are not watching the screen, just listening, you're in for a surprise and a treat because we do not have Tristan here today. Tristan just traveled back from the big NAR conference in Boston. And if you know Tristan, he's not much of a traveler, and he typically doesn't like to travel east of the Rocky Mountains, and that is as far east as you can pretty much go. So I think he needs about 2 weeks to recover. So in his stead, and because we've talked about doing this actually to Brian's suggestion, we're going to start having guests, and a different type of guest. I think most people have become accustomed to guests that, maybe well-known or they have companies or they're doing something very unique. Well, we're gonna do something different in the terms of having guests of the people that are in the trenches and doing the things and are inspirations to all of you. Because as many of you know, and I say this all the time, one of the things I think the biggest mistakes that we tend to fall into when we go to conferences and we listen to people speak and teach is that we're always learning from the people that are doing it at the very highest level, and it's not very implementable. And so we thought, you know what? Let's talk to some people that don't necessarily have that advantage and are doing wonderful things. And so we're going to kick this off with Brian Quinlan. You all know Brian because we shout him out every time. Actually, Brian, the unfortunate thing is if you truly are our only listener, who the hell is going to listen to this one?
I don't know. I think I could probably get my wife to listen to this one, but that's probably it. Actually, you know what? I think my boy James Patton's going to listen.
Yes. Well, Brian Quinlan, thank you so much for being here. And if you're not familiar with who Brian is, he has been with us for pretty much since day one for a long time. Student of the game. And Brian, the best compliment I can probably give you is not only do you apply the things that you learn, you also go out to different sources, which is smart, and we tell people all the time, don't just use one person or one platform as the place that you gain something from, because you gotta get a mix of things and then mold it into your own. And that's what Brian does a really great job of, and he's going to talk about that today. But Brian, first things first, you're an Indianapolis guy. He's wearing his Indiana pullover right now. If you're not a college football fan, then you don't know that Indiana is literally having the greatest football season in the history of their program.
For real.
Brian, are you born and raised in Indiana?
No, actually, from Illinois. Lived there all the way through high school, and then I went to IU into college, and so graduated college in '95 and did not go back. So
where in Illinois? Chicago area or?
Yeah, I was south suburb of Chicago, about 25 minutes.
So that makes you a White Sox fan.
It does, though I was in a house of Cub fans.
Really?
I will attribute my White Sox fandom to the very first baseball team I played on when I was 6 years old was the White Sox. So, if it had been the St. Louis Cardinals, maybe I'd be a Cardinals fan. I think that might make me pretentious. So
both baseball franchises are a miserable existence in Chicago either way, so you pretty much lose.
Yeah, that's true. I like to think that Sox fans are maybe a little bit more realistic. I know the Cub fans make fun of the Sox fans because when they suck, people don't go to the games. But I look at it as, why would I spend money to go watch a horrible team? I think we're just more realistic, and I also like to refer to Wrigley Field as a 40,000-seat bar.
Yeah. It's actually, not to go down that rabbit hole, but as a baseball guy, I've been to Wrigley and I've been to Fenway, and Fenway blows it away in terms of history. There's the feel. Wrigley's got it, but what they've done to the outside, it ruined it. It ruined the entire feel of that area, in my opinion. It's because it's completely been redone. But yeah, I'm a Cardinals guy, and by the way, to that point, the Cardinals have been horrible the last couple of years, and people aren't going to the games. And this is a die-hard baseball town. That's every town. So, yeah, whatever.
Except for the Cubs, apparently. But again, so bars.
Also, it's a thing to do, I guess. Well, congratulations on the Indiana success. And so you moved to Indiana. Where did you meet your wife?
IU. We had she thinks that we had a calculus class together because my first go around at IU, I was a secondary education major for 2 years. So she and I definitely could have crossed paths in a calculus class, but I don't remember calculus nor anybody who was in the room with me. And we had a creative writing class together our junior year and then started dating senior year. And here we are, celebrated anniversary number 27 this year, and it's been great.
The rest is history.
That's right.
Were you there during the Bobby Knight regime?
I was, yeah. I was there in 91, was my freshman year. They went to the Final Four and lost to Duke, unfortunately. So, yeah, I had some good years at IU with basketball.
Yeah. Indiana is like basketball heaven, right? I mean, that's
really
where the movie Hoosiers comes from. And I imagine it's very similar to Missouri in the sense that in St. Louis, Kansas City, that sports are big because we don't have much else to do.
Well, yeah, sports are very big here. Auto racing certainly is a big thing around
Indy
here.
500. Yep.
I have not gotten into that. It's just, wasn't part of my upbringing and just don't really have a huge interest there. But basketball's big. And then I've been a season ticket holder for the Colts since 94. No, that's wrong. Since 2004. And, obviously there were a lot of great years in that decade. And it's not been great since then. But, people do love their football when they're good. Yeah, but basketball always seems to be a good draw.
Yeah. Indiana's just one of those states that I feel like it just goes under the radar. But then again, what do they say about the Midwest? We're all flyover states. So I guess you fall into that category. So, Brian, what's your history in the business? You are not a lifelong real estate agent.
I am not. And I was a teacher for 20 years. Started as an elementary school teacher, did that for 8 years, got into middle school math teaching. And I will say my wife and I were in a good position. We had paid off our house. And so when I told her in probably 2019 that I wanted to get out of teaching, she was surprised, didn't know that I had kind of secretly been looking around for something else to do. And she was on board with whatever it is I wanted to do. And when I got out of teaching or started to look to get out of teaching, it wasn't just real estate, honestly. And that was kind of a last thing. I was looking to maybe go work at a college, do some student services stuff, and that didn't happen. And I was literally sitting in my car at a corner one day and saw the KW sign that said, consider being a realtor. I was like, huh. We had just gone through the process of selling our house and building a new house. And so it was fresh in my mind. I still, after doing this for 4 years, I enjoy going to look at houses. I enjoy talking about real estate. And so back then it was like, you know what? I enjoy talking about real estate. And the more I thought about it, there's a lot of teaching that goes into being a realtor, I believe. I mean, I will continue to say first-time home buyers are my jam because sitting down with oftentimes kids, though not always, oftentimes people in their 20s that have never bought a house before. I mean, that I'm in my element right there talking to those people. The teacher in me definitely comes out.
Yeah, that's cool. So you became a real estate agent in 2019, so pre-COVID.
Well, it was yes and no. Like I had attempted to pass the real estate exam in the summer leading into the 2019 school year, fully telling myself at the time, even if I pass this test, I'm doing one more year teaching, then that's it. And did not pass in the summer. Ultimately, it was Thanksgiving break that I passed it. And, again, still, I'm going to finish out this school year. And then, of course, March 2020 rolls around, and we wind up in COVID quarantine for the last 2 months of teaching. And, yeah, I started full-time right after Memorial Day there in 2020.
Really? Wow. So, I mean, not you and, like, probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of others, you were on the forefront of it, but there was a lot of people, teachers, all kinds of careers that went and got their real estate license during COVID.
Oh, I mean, I can see why. I didn't know what I was getting into. Nobody did. And actually, I remember the beginning of COVID quarantine, and it was like we were having meetings about shift there at KW, and no one knew what real estate was going to be. In fact, I would say the majority of people I talked to expected real estate to go super slow, just because people weren't going to want others coming into their houses, and the economy in general, took a hit, of course, but real estate just absolutely went bonkers.
Yeah.
And I can see where a lot of people would have thought, yeah, hey, these people are making money hand over fist. Selling homes is easy right now. And, in the beginning days, I wasn't a listing agent. The way that my team was kind of formatted, they kind of put new people into the buyer's realm. And so, there was a list agent on our team who sold over 100 houses. She had never done that in her life. And here I am driving all over the place, making offer after offer.
Yeah.
So, I would imagine, yes, it was easy to sell houses at the time, but I don't necessarily believe it was easy for people who were brand new.
Yeah. Yeah. There was different challenges. Now, so you got in during COVID when it was gangbusters, which is ironic that, you go into this massive, pandemic, and business goes gangbusters, and then you get out of the pandemic, and you actually, in theory, you would think it should be reversed, but it was the opposite. Everybody knows this by now. At what point in the journey did you say, man, I'm really going to lean into social?
Probably. Okay. So, at the time, like I said, I was with KW, where I worked for 3 years. Tristan was at KW. Mm-hmm. And so he started popping into my emails, with, lab coat agents. And then, you started appearing in videos. And so it wasn't necessarily that I was specifically looking to go into social, but I do have, I guess, a bit of a background in media. And so I was never one of those people who was shy to be on camera. And so, it just started to appeal to me, because here's the thing. I despise cold calling, and I will not ever be a door knocker. And there are people who have made great careers and have great success with that, and God bless them. But that's not me. And so, to hear you guys talk what I believe would be, I describe as realistic, that this is kind of the new door knocking. It is the new cold calling. Like, this is your CRM. This is your outreach to people. That appealed to me. And, I don't mind making videos, though, obviously, as we all know, it's a challenge at times to come up with what the content's going to be. But, once there's an idea, I'm usually pretty cool with going out and doing it. And, if you watched any of my videos this year, I don't mind kind of making an ass of myself at times. I mean, maybe to a certain extent, but, it's really just comfortable. So when did I decide to lean into social media? Honestly, from the beginning, it just became more and more. So, yeah.
I love it. So you and it's interesting you say that. So the thing I want to highlight from what you said, which I think resonates, and most agents would agree, that they despise cold calling and door knocking and those things. Not to say that they don't work, and will maybe always work, maybe to a degree. I think it's going to get less and less because the upcoming generations just don't tolerate it. But it's interesting that you say that.
Think about when someone comes to your house now, even your friend. They don't ring your doorbell or knock on your door. They text you from the driveway. People don't, I think people shy away from the whole how many people are like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know if I could knock on your door. You can walk right in my house. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, I find it funny that, people are still successful, honestly, with the whole door knocking thing, because most people don't want a random stranger coming to their door.
Yeah. It's funny, my mother-in-law sent me a video this morning, and it was one of those parody videos that said what each generation, how they react to the doorbell ringing. And it was, boomers say, oh, I'm going to go see who it is. And Gen X says, check the door, check the camera. And millennials go hide. And Gen Z just completely ignores that a doorbell was just rang. It's just funny how, but that's but it's reality. I mean, that's where it's going.
Yeah.
Okay, so I brought that back to the forefront because I think that resonates, and I want to drive that home. It's not just people like me and Tristan saying it. It's this. Brian is living proof of it, and more of you need to. I know you feel it, but you haven't leaned into what you need to be doing. So as you were recognizing your own disdain for these things, and you said, okay, I buy this, I believe this, what was kind of your first jump off the ledge? And by the way, you also mentioned you do not have a fear of being in front of the camera, so that helps.
Yeah.
What would be, before you go into the next question, what would be your response to someone who does say, I'm deathly afraid of it? How do I get over that? What's your response to that?
I suppose I'd say maybe partner up with someone who, like myself, is cool with going out and making videos, because maybe, what's the fear? Is the fear that you aren't good at making videos? Is it the fear that you're bad on camera? Is it the fear that you don't know how to edit and make it worthwhile? So, that's, I guess, point number one is, what is it that's stopping somebody from doing it? I'd say the majority of the people probably is they don't, like seeing themselves on camera or whatever. So, partner up with somebody like myself who is cool with doing it, who is willing to take you out and maybe show you how to do it. And, because as you guys say all the time, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I try and, I guess, bring a little realism to it, is people just don't give a shit. Make a video, put it out there. They don't care. If they want to watch it, they'll watch it. If it sucks, they won't. That's fine.
Yeah.
But, the more you do it, the better it's going to get. And also, follow people like yourselves, like me, like others who make great videos. Now, that can get a bit overwhelming because you see somebody who does this phenomenal video, like, oh my God, I can't ever do that. And, I guess there's maybe a balance there. But, you just gotta go do it, because that's where the business is.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the stepping off point for you as it relates to creating content? So you bought it.
Yes.
Now where do I go from here?
I honestly can't point to a stepping point. So a little background back into my teaching days. When I was at the middle school, my very first college degree was sports broadcasting. So, again, not afraid of being on camera or anything like that. And so when I was at middle school, they put me as one of two teachers in charge of the morning news at the school. And my job specifically wasn't about the tech of it, because I was another teacher. I was kind of in charge of the anchors and, writing scripts and helping them, kind of look good on camera. And so when COVID happened and we were locked down, we came up with the idea at my brokerage that for our team, we were going to try and do like a weekly, live event where we were on Facebook and doing market updates. Things were happening so quickly. People may or may not have been interested. I don't know, but it put us out there, and so whether it was me trying to convince others on my team who maybe weren't, and this was my way to try and encourage them. Hey, let's go do a live. And it always strikes me as funny. Do we have a script? What are we talking about? We're winging it. Let's go. That's kind of how I do a lot of my stuff. And, from there, it was, again, more and more people started to show up in my feed, because that's the stuff I was watching. And so I'd see various realtors doing walkthrough videos or market updates or, whatever it was. And that's certainly evolved over the last 4 years as well. But like I said, I can't say I have a stepping off point, but it was really just, let's start doing it. And I like the voice of you guys in my head of, press record, just go do it. And this is your lead generation. And I was like, heck yeah, let's lead generate this way. I don't want to sit in the office and call people.
And I want to again accentuate what Brian's saying here, because, and part of the reason why we wanted to do this, because you're kind of validating it for me, is that it doesn't have to be perfectly scripted and have this perfect plan. And that's exactly why we're doing this, because you're going to hear different things from different people. But in Brian's case, I think what he's saying is incredibly normal. And I can relate to it, because when I went into this, it was just more of I believe that this is going to be the future. I believe this is going to work. So I'm just going to wing it and let's go and let's see what happens. And that's effectively what you've done now, or what you did. Now, obviously you've evolved. You've gotten good at this. I imagine that in your sports broadcasting background, there wasn't mobile video editing or computer video editing as a part of that. And so, but you've gotten good at that. And so I want to point that out. Like, you don't have a background in this, yet you figured it out and now you do it. And so talk us through that.
You're right. There was some background in editing, but certainly back in the 90s of when I did that in college, that certainly was not a thing computer wise. But, I've kind of evolved through my teaching days I was kind of a tech guy at my schools. So people would come to me for tech help, and, I was always seeking out new ways to bring technology into the classroom. And so I think that just continued to roll over into this career. And I have often said, I'm not scared of the technology. One of the features that most tech programs have is the undo button. It is hard to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. And if you do, delete it, start over. If you do, hit that undo button, back it up, try it again, whatever. And I do that all the time. The fact that I don't script a lot of the stuff that I do, I'm just kind of shooting off. Oh, that sucked. Let's stop that, back it up, and try it again. And that's what I lean into, is the opportunity to do something again if it sucks. I'm also not necessarily afraid to put something out that just may suck and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and that, again, it validates the importance of learning that skill set, because you obviously learned that. Like, hey, I'm going to just wing it, roll with it, which is not for everyone. Nope. But those that it is for, the efficiency that editing skills provide is priceless.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So now you've gotten to this point, and so what was your, I would say, like, how did you learn? How did you learn how to edit a video?
The minor bit of background I had in editing, just about cutting, splicing them. I literally, back in the 90s, would, before being a teacher, I worked at Blockbuster Video, for those of you scoring at home. And like, I had learned how to take a tape out, cut it apart, and literally with tape, put it back together. So this just mentally was the same idea. Just I wasn't physically doing it with my hands, I guess. And so, I can't say, how did I learn that? It was really just a matter of, okay, well, I understand the tech of this. I understand, okay, all right, well, if I split it here and then cut a little off here, it automatically goes together. And it was just constantly playing with it, to be honest.
That's a really great description, because it really actually, I never thought of it that way. And I know I have experience in that, but it is simplistic in that regard.
Yeah.
And it's the same concept. Like, you don't like something? Cool. Take your scissors out, snip one side, snip the other side, and push the two together. And that's exactly what you're doing with editing. So what was
that's the visual of it. If you look at the split button, it's literally scissors cutting a piece of.
Good point. What was the first app that you went to when you started doing this?
We tried a few things. I was fortunate to be on a team at KW with a very successful managing broker who was over the whole office, but he was also the owner of our team, so a small group. The lead agent on our team, kind of our manager, if you will, he worked in TV, and he has several Emmy Awards in local TV, where he was he was more of a camera guy, more of an editing guy, but also fine being on camera if necessary. And so, we tried to do things maybe a little bit more professional. We had Premiere Pro.
Oh, wow.
And, we had a media guy on my team when I first started.
Yeah.
And he moved on from there, but he was a big, like his degree had nothing to do with real estate. He was all media and editing and all of that. So we had Premiere Pro. And again, it was just a matter of, well, I can probably figure this out. And after he left, about a year later, I actually took over not only as realtor, but I was also part-time media guy for our team. And so I started to kind of learn Premiere Pro. There was Descript. But again, there was so many features to that, it could take me forever to sit down and try and learn all of that. So there was a fair amount of it that was way over my head, and I didn't care to try and get caught up on it. And then CapCut came around. And I'm like, holy crap, I can do so many things here with CapCut. I'm sure Premiere Pro is significantly better, but this does what I need it to do.
Yeah.
And it just keeps evolving. And if you don't have the CapCut free version, you are missing out. B, if you have the finances to pay for CapCut Pro, do it. The free version is very robust. It's fantastic. The Pro version, which is what, 10 or 11 bucks a month, I think, incredibly inexpensive. But there are more features. You have cooler graphics, and again, it's always evolving as well. So that is what I use 100% of the time is CapCut. I have a podcast that we record on one program. I put it into CapCut on my computer and edit it from there. It's great.
You already just said, folks, and I think at first somebody might be thinking, "Oh crap, Premiere Pro, like that's professional editor skill set." You regressed, and not really by choice, and said CapCut's perfectly adequate, and I would 100% agree. I'm going to use that, and plus it's mobile, it's easy. Premiere Pro, not that simple.
If there is a Premiere Pro version on a phone, I don't know that existed. And so CapCut was in my phone. It's on my computer. No brainer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right. So this is kind of the progression. Now here you are, and you're heavily leaning into social. As I mentioned, you have multiple sources. Two more questions that I want to kind of wrap this up with is, number one, what is your advice to someone who maybe doesn't have sources? They're just blindly watching things on social, but they don't actually invest in that side of their business. What is your take on that in terms of what's your advice? What would you tell an agent who's up and coming and says, "Man, I've been watching you. What should I do?"
So you say this all the time, that when you're watching social, you can't just be doom scrolling. You have to watch with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're sitting there watching my videos or watching anybody's videos that you think, does good stuff, don't look at it from the standpoint of, that's cool, that's entertaining, show your wife, significant other, whomever, "Oh, this is so funny, watch this." Look at it from the standpoint of, how can I utilize that to make my own thing? Because we know that the key ingredient for social media is to gain attention from the first couple of seconds. Well, what is it about that video that made you watch it? And it doesn't necessarily even have to be real estate. It can be anybody. What of any video that you've seen, what is it that made you stop? And can you somehow turn that into something that you can utilize?
Yeah. So what does that look like? Give me a little more specificity on that.
Well, like I take your videos often, whether it was, and I full disclosure, Jeff and I have been friends for a while now. I think I joined DOS back in like 2021. So, I mean, I've been following you even before we were friends for a while. And the weekly newsletter that you send out, I look at that, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll go and utilize that video. And whether it's 100% stealing your stuff and you're cool with that, or, okay, here's the template for what I want to make into my own. And now, just in the last couple of weeks, I now got into your content, and holy crap, if you have not signed up for Jeff's content spreadsheet, it is robust and it has so much usable content that, I highly recommend it. It's at a really good price right now. So get in on that little free plug for you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I guess I don't know if that answers your question.
So, well, answer me this: was Drunk on Social the first? Maybe the first stepping off in terms of where you were. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
shaking your
definitely.
head. But then you also went and broadened that. And I know that you're familiar with Keeping Current Matters. You also went over to, what's the other platform you went to?
BAM Media,
very well known in the real estate space. And so now you're taking bits and pieces from Tristan and I and our group. You're familiar with KPM. You're familiar with BAM. How do you not get lost in all of the different types? Because I know that we're probably very different than BAM. And so how do you bring it all together for yourself?
Interesting you asked that question, because I was driving to the doctor this morning and listening to your all's most recent podcast. Thanks for the shout out again, by the way.
Of course.
And that's one of the things I was kind of trying to think of where today's conversation was going to go. And that question popped into my head because I do have a lot, whether it's emails that I get, people that I follow, and groups that I belong to. And that is, for me, probably the hardest part, is trying to, it's super easy to be overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that I'm getting. And how is it to decide what it is that I'm going to use today or this week or whatever? I'm not going to lie. I don't have a plan when it comes to that. It's really just almost on a daily basis, like, okay, yeah, this is worthwhile. I'm going to go with that. And, at the same time, trying to keep it in my head that A, there's only so much time in a given day to be able to do this. And B, how often do I want to be putting out stuff? Because it's maybe possible that I could have multiple reels going out per day, but that doesn't necessarily help the algorithm. And, if I do that one day where I make a couple of reels, okay, and then tomorrow I don't do jack squat, that doesn't help either. So I'm not a great example, unfortunately, of what do I do with all this stuff. It's really just a matter of what appeals to me.
But you're a real example. You're a real example, and that's what matters. Because, and to answer my next question would be, what kind of impact is social having on your business?
Good question. It has evolved into this year. I can pinpoint deals that I have closed because of social media specifically, and it's not a huge number. There are people that you may follow on social media that, I will say my managing broker is phenomenal. And he is one of the top 5%, maybe closer even the top 1% of all realtors in the state of Indiana. His reach on social media is his primary source. He does not cold call. He does not door knock. He has gotten a lot of media, and he is a super talkative person. He used to work in the auto industry for a dealer. So, he had a lot of people, because he's only been doing it 6 years, and he's vaulted that high in our state. And he, utilized the connections he had made over there to turn it into business here. And now he makes, entertaining. I love Sean. My videos are better than his from a technical standpoint. But his videos do better for him than mine do, for whatever reason. So, getting back to where I was going, I've closed 15 deals this year. Not anything to sneeze at. I know that the national average for realtors is down like 1 or 2, right? So I feel good about myself. When I compare myself to others, I'm nowhere near. I mean, Sean will probably get close to 100 this year. So, it is what it is. For me, a little side note, I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So it works well. So from those 15 deals, I can pinpoint 3 specifically that are from social media. I had a couple early in the year where I listed their house. I actually taught their daughter. She's in her 20s now, but I taught her back in 6th grade. And when we sat down to have that conversation, they said, you know what, Brian, we know a lot of realtors. We are friends with a lot of realtors. And we're going with you because we didn't want to go with someone who was our friend, though we are acquaintances and we're super friendly. That's well, I wouldn't say that we're friends. We're not going to go hang out. But they said, we like what you're doing on social media. We think you're going to do a great job marketing our house. And that's why we're going with you. I was like, outstanding. My neighbors, they listed their house late last year. And they went 2-3 months of nothing. And I know, I don't know the realtor that they used. I do know that realtor was way more old school, where they were cold calling and they relied specifically on open houses to try and sell the house. And it didn't sell. They came to me in January and said, hey, we'd like to talk to you about listing our house. And they said, we love what you're doing on social media. And, we think that you're going to do a great job marketing the house. And, partially because time of year, I definitely got it at a better time than their previous realtor had. But also, my marketing was significantly better. I made a phenomenal video for their house, in my opinion. But I live in the neighborhood. I mean, I literally took my home videos from cool stuff we do in our neighborhood. I put it in this video, and that video was awesome things about their house because it's a beautiful house. They're a young married couple with no kids. They have a couple of cats. They took pristine care of their house. And I said, this house is great. And I showed this, but that's not why you want to buy this. Here's another great thing, but that's not why I want to buy this. And then I went into check out the awesome stuff we do in our neighborhood. Ain't no other realtor going to do that.
Yeah.
And so, again, back to your question a long time ago, social media is just becoming definitely a bigger part. I can't tell you how many times you're getting this all the time with the lake. How many times I go out and oh my gosh, dude, you're always in my feed. But I see your videos all the time. Hey, where's your big hat? I thought you were going to have your big hat.
Yeah. Hell, N said that on the call before we even started this morning.
Yeah. Actually, there's a great story. So I went to the BAM Media conference in Vegas last month. Mm-hmm. And there was a gentleman there, and I did not take my big hat. My wife was like, you're not putting that in the suitcase. And so there's a dude there who had a gigantic hat on, and I walked up to him and I said, man, you probably get this all the time. And I showed him a picture of me with my big hat on. I said, people probably ask you, where'd you get that hat? It's awesome. And the gentleman, and that dude was from Canada. That's not at all related to the story. The gentleman standing next to him, who I'm assuming they were friends or acquaintances or whatever, he pulls up his phone, pulls up his Instagram, and he goes, dude, is this you? I was like, holy crap. Yeah, and he lives in Las Vegas. I was like, that is awesome.
That is
not business for me, but I mean, talk about, showing my reach outside of my Indiana area. That was super cool. Validation, I guess.
I wanna say this is that it's only in quotations 3 deals. How many agents out there would kill for 3 extra deals? Or that 3 extra deals, how much of an impact would it have on your life this year? And for those of you that it would have that impact on, it's a lot. But the bigger point is your ROI is probably very strong because you've taken the time to invest more time than money into this, whereas all traditional forms of marketing probably would yield a similar result, maybe even worse, a billboard, postcards. They're all long games, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Door knocking, networking, all the things. And you're just choosing to go down this different path, which, my bet would be as long as you continue, next year it's probably going to double, maybe even triple. And year after that, it's just going to continue to compound and grow because you understand the game and you're following the playbook, if you will, and just continuing to evolve and get better.
Where I'm at now, this is going into year number 5, I guess. I have already started to get return business from people I closed in the last 4 years. So that will continue to evolve. Being a teacher where I taught kids who were 12 years old back when I started doing 6th grade math, that was 2008. Those kids, when they were 12 in 2008, are now getting into their prime first time buying years. And I first started on Instagram back when I was a middle school teacher, and that's where I would allow my students to follow me. I had my Facebook kind of shut down, locked down at the time because I didn't really want my students following me there or their family, just because, whatever, just a little separation, right? But I was like, I don't care if you follow me on Instagram. The kids were like, Mr. Q, can you follow me on Instagram? I'm like, no, because I don't want to know what you're doing with your life. No offense. And I said, because you guys do stupid shit. Anyway, so they would start following me there. And so, I don't have a huge following on Instagram, but that started with students who were in their teenage years who still follow me. And, now it's open to whoever the hell wants to follow me. I don't care. But long story short, those kids see me on Instagram, and I will be completely open and say my engagement on my social media isn't great for whatever reason. And I try a lot of the posts that, are supposed to get engagement, and for whatever reason, maybe it's my CTA, lack thereof. I don't know. That's something I need to figure out. But it doesn't mean people aren't watching.
Yep.
And you say this all the time. Views are vanity metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at a post that got 200, 300 views, I understand in the world of Instagram that kind of sucks. But if I were to put 200 or 300 people in a room where I'm standing on stage talking, I would take that anytime.
Yeah.
So, I have to take the vanity out of it and understand there are people watching. And you never know when that's going to turn into business, but you got to keep showing up.
Yeah. 200-300 views, not in the world of Instagram. In the world of big influencers is nothing. But in the world of reality, it's very normal and actually arguably good. And the way you articulated it was perfect, because if you could put yourself in a room of 200 or 300 people, that would cost a lot of money. And so when you think of it that in that perspective, it is golden. And the truth is, it's really hard to get engagement. Really, really hard to get engagement. I first raise my hand and say I have a unique advantage. I hosted a podcast that gave me some quote unquote fame in the industry, and I was on stages, and so it allowed me to grow a big audience. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now. And so don't compare yourself. And Brian, you have the right attitude, and you're right, because another thing that you're mentioning here is that you are going to pull from your past life. You're going to pull from your past life, which is going to really help your business grow. And there's so many real estate agents that need to do a better job of that. Whether you came from a tech industry or you came from, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever industry, pull from that, because you have something relatable with people, and they will be drawn to you. And dude, I love that. Now, last question. As it relates to social, what's next? What do you foresee shadow your future?
Yeah. So through BAM, one of the realtors, Brad McCallum from Canada.
Stud. Yep.
Phenomenal YouTube stud, right?
Mm-hmm.
He sat down for a podcast interview with another gentleman in Canada by the name of Nolan Matthias. I don't know if you have heard of Nolan. He also has a huge YouTube following. So they sat down for a YouTube conversation. And so I have chosen, and I'm always very particular about what I choose to spend money on. It's partially, I'm going to blame my wife. She is significantly more frugal than me. And so I'm just, anyways, I'm very frugal, but at the same time, sometimes I just got to jump in. So I decided that I jumped into his coaching platform for YouTube specifically.
Cool.
What I have noticed in the minor amount of research I've done here in the Indy area there's very few realtors around here who have any type of a YouTube presence. And that, to me, is something that I'm not taking advantage of. And so I'm partnering with an expert in the YouTube area who's going to help me grow that. And this is now, I think, week number 3 where I'm trying to be consistent on YouTube. I have kind of a 5-pillar platform with YouTube that I'm trying to get to. And so that's where I'm focusing right now. The rest of it, what I've learned from, all of my other social media stuff is various ways to repurpose material.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I have a podcast. It's called Real Estate Makes Us Drink. It's over there on YouTube for those of you who want to see that. It's fun. And I sit down with a lender buddy of mine, and that is free content that I don't have to recreate. I put it into Opus Clips. Opus Clips, also another inexpensive platform for AI cutting up long form videos. And then I use those to promote the YouTube, Facebook, but also to just put out content. And so that's helpful. So, with this other YouTube channel that I'm doing, where I'm more Indianapolis specific, I can then take those videos and repurpose it into shorter segments that I can utilize to put out onto other social platforms. And I think that's key. I'm at a place where new people would be lost. And you guys have said, in the past, start with one.
Yeah.
And that's like, I have a new kind of role on my team here in Indy where my managing broker is taking advantage of me being a teacher, and he's put me in charge of new people on the team. So I'm the onboarding guy. And I sat down with one of our young ladies last week, and I said, her social media right now does not exist. And I said, okay, which one do you do most often? Just for fun, whatever. And she said Facebook. And I said, okay, great. Focus on Facebook, because that's where you have your most followers right now. That's where, you're putting out most of your material. Just get comfortable doing that. And then, of course, that morphs over into Instagram. So you're kind of doing 2 at once. But don't worry about TikTok. Don't worry about YouTube. Don't worry about anything else. Just focus on the one thing. When you get better at that and more comfortable with it, go on to something else. And so that's where I'm at a point now. I've got all that shit, So now doing YouTube, which I haven't really been doing long form, that's where YouTube comes in. But now I can take that and break it up and utilize in other areas for shorter content.
Awesome. Last question. You didn't know this. You didn't know this. There's so much for 20 minutes. What if you said, what are the 3 tools? You can only use 3 tools for your social media journey. What would be those 3 tools? And I'm sure an editing app is one of them, but you answer the question.
Does a phone count, or are we just assuming that exists?
Okay, I would say that's an assumption. Everyone has one of those. If you don't, you're not listening to this anyway.
As I said that, it's maybe not, because some people think that they need that camera.
Touché.
They need that expensive camera. They need that.
Okay, so a camera is a given.
Correct. Okay, in whatever form that is.
Yes.
For me, it's my phone. And I actually bought a 360 camera. I hardly ever use it. And I'm disappointed that I spent a couple $100 on it. It's a great camera, but it's just one more thing that I got to worry about.
Yeah.
So yeah, camera. I would say CapCut, and there certainly are other editing
apps.
An editing app. What's the other one you guys use?
Viva Video. I use Viva.
Yeah. And they're almost identical.
Correct.
And so, and I did use Viva Video back in the day, and then just settled on CapCut.
For CapCut, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say the other item would be a good microphone. Because, there are times when I'm out without a microphone and I realize, well, that sound sucked. And, video is one thing. People will watch a video that may have bad video quality, may be poorly edited, but if the sound sucks, they will shut you off. They will scroll past you in a hurry. So I would recommend having a decent microphone in whatever capacity that is. I actually just got some new DJI mics in the mail yesterday, so I'm going to be using those. But I also have some other. Anyways, that's where I get critical of myself. It's like, oh, I can hear the popping, or That did sound good, and it's annoying. But yeah, so there you go. Camera, cut, microphones.
There you go. There you have it, folks. This has been a rich conversation from somebody who is just out on the streets and doing the thing. And I hope that's inspiration to many of you because, again, it is an intimidating world that we want to make less intimidating. And Brian, you've obviously given great tips. If somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect with you?
So Instagram is probably where I spend the majority of my time. And I found with people, they reply more to Instagram messages, I think, than any other platform that I've been on. So The Realtor Indy is my Instagram handle. If you want to send me an email, that's pretty easy too. It's movemetoindy@gmail. So that's a good spot. And
you also have a really good newsletter. If somebody wanted to join your newsletter, and by the way, to most of you listening to this, you're probably real estate agents by and large. So the advice that I give to anyone is use people like Brian as inspiration. You're not going to get on his newsletter because you care what's going on in Indianapolis. You're going to get on his newsletter because you want to be inspired and you want to get some creative inspiration. You want to follow him on Instagram for creative inspiration and those sorts of things. So think of it like that. That's when you know you're getting into becoming a creator, when you start to think like that. Not thinking, well, why would I follow another realtor? I don't give a shit. That's the mindset that you got to get out of. And so if they wanted to join your newsletter, I guess just shoot you a DM, say, add me.
Well, yeah, DM is easy. I'll give in my beacons that, as a way to contact me in several ways.
Show notes.
Put in the show notes. That's an easy way to do it too.
Perfect. Brian, been a pleasure. Always fun. Now we just got to get you to the Ozarks one of these days.
That it will happen.
Twist your arm.
I know. The funny thing is, I have a lake, small, of course, but a lake here in my neighborhood. And all I ever do is just float in that lake and drink with my neighbors, which is super fun. But I've never been a lake guy, but I am so drawn to come and hang out with you in the lake.
Hey, that's the name of the game. That's why I do the content, right?
I've said this to my wife, and she is way more of a lake person. She's like, "What? You would not enjoy that. Why would you want to go there?" I said, "I thought I'd go hang out with Jeff."
Well, we're gonna happen one of these days.
I need to come out there and go golfing. That's what needs to.
Well, it's that time of year now. It's definitely not lake season anymore. So, Ryan, I appreciate you being on today. I appreciate your loyalty to us. Your continued advocacy.
Who do we have to shout out? Because the last
you did
10 episodes,
James,
yeah, and Sala, you get that too.
I bet Sala's not listening, but yeah, that's good. I like that. All right. I like it.
Have me on, dude. This was great.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for being here.